Hello there, Chris. Thanks very much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to you being able to share your story with everyone, because it has been, I think both of us have found this a really interesting journey with you. So would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and the situation you were in when you came across me and my work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Chris. I'm a physio. I've been suffering with migraine on and off for about, I mean, it must be 20 years or more, since I was a teenager. I've gone through all various kind of the traditional medical route and Western medical model to kind of look at finding perhaps some solutions and answers to the cause of my migraine. You know, it's taken me down a route that's had me pulled and poked and all kinds of scans and things taken, but nobody really ever to get the root of the problem, other than to say that what I was having was kind of migraines, which commonly affected my eyes and sometimes my balance, and that was sometimes worse and sometimes better. And there wasn't a great deal that seemed to be impacting on it that there was no pills I could take, anything as such. So it was just a case of living with it, which, you know, it did have an impact on my daily life. You know, there were days that I couldn't do certain things that I wanted to do because of my migraines. And it was really, you know, it's taking control. So I did a bit of research online, and I kind of came across a book by John Sarno, which was basically about the idea that it could be these migraines and my subsequent hypertension. Actually, I've had hypertension the past few years. It could be an issue related to actually my mind, rather than so much as actually a physical representation. And yeah, I kind of started reading, and I haven't really stopped. I kind of started reading from John Sarno, and that led me on to other books. And from there on in, it kind of led me on a path down to Schubiner and Schechter, and then kind of I tried to do the online course with Schubiner, and I found that actually had some benefits. So I thought there may be some legs in this. There might not just be, not the case it's in my head, but there may be some way that my body is being influenced with the symptoms by my mind. So I kind of went with it, and I contacted Schubiner and asked him if he would be able to do some Skype work with me, and he recommended me on to yourself, Georgie, who subsequently I've had a period of care since, working on a whole range of things and pointed me to a whole new source of directions and lots of new books that have kind of taken me on.
So when you first started reading the books, did you make much progress from reading any of the books initially? Because you know, some people can recover just from reading a book, but for many more, they need much more. So where were you at when you first started reading the books?
I think I read it with interest. I thought, well, this is a nice idea. This is something, you know, it's quite a nice idea. I mean, being a physiotherapist by background, I am very, very much evidence-based practice. I'm very much show me it works, prove to me it works. So I think to begin with, I was very skeptical, to say the least. And I think deep down, I think I probably am still a little skeptical. You know, it's because of the way that it's worked. It's yeah, I mean, I think that for me, the reinforcement of reading lots of different professionals giving very similar advice in a slightly different format, that was really comforting, and I found that really great. But there's so many, yeah, I mean, like there's so many different professionals that are kind of getting across the same message. And for me, that was really important, that the more books I was reading, that actually they were saying it in slightly different words in a different way, but actually the deep meaning of it is pretty similar.
Yeah.
So that was really useful.
So when you first came to me and we decided to work together, you at that point were having these migraines most days, and I've written down you having them between 1 minute and 15 minutes. So they weren't the classical sort of migraines most people have, but they were affecting your work and living your life. And your blood pressure at that point as well was pretty extreme, wasn't it, despite medication?
Yeah, I mean, I'd recently gone up from 5 milligrams of Ronpril to 10 milligrams. My GP had put me up, and subsequently it still hadn't been managed, and I'd started on a diuretic to help me with that. Which, as somebody that's still in their 30s, it's quite stressful to kind of have that go on. So yeah, that I wasn't a great place for my blood pressure. I had there was no causal fact that they could find with blood pressure. Everything they brought back was normal. So it was a case of, it was just one of those things, essential hypertension they call it, but they just did not know what caused it.
I remember you mentioned the sort of level it was at when we first met.
It was around 200 over 100. I mean, it would very wildly fluctuate, but it was, it was high blood pressure. It was severely high blood pressure that I was having, and even medication didn't always bring it down as what we would want it to.
Yeah. Okay, so you undertook filled in the pre-assessment forms, and we undertook the assessment. And you were able to begin to see a link, weren't you, with the blood pressure, with the migraines especially, as to when they started.
Yeah.
Did that help you with your acceptance that maybe this was the right way to go?
I don't know, at first time you kind of laugh it off as, oh, that was a nice coincidence, but I think when kind of the penny started to drop, it was kind of, well, yeah, I think I can see now that there's been some stressful activity, or there's been some activity which I've struggled with perhaps cognitively as a person, that has been either very closely related to that time. And I think sometimes I just wasn't aware of it. And actually, after I'd kind of started with the course of therapy that we'd done, Georgie, it was kind of almost like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, that probably was quite stressful, but I hadn't even realised it myself. So it was really useful.
So really, it's just reinforcing the fact that our lives are our lives, and it's normal to us. And certainly, your life, your childhood, your teenage years, and this particular stressful incident that occurred for you was just that happened in your life. It's not a matter of thinking, well, okay, actually, or keeping in mind that it was a very stressful event, but it was a significant event that you can now see, looking back, could well have triggered those migraines moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been an amazing client anyway. You've everything I suggested you do, you've taken it fully on board, and been an avid reader, so being able to really look into all the, a bit more depth about the things that we discussed. So what are the things that you feel were the most helpful for you moving forward as you were going through the journey?
It sounds kind of strange, but getting back into my body is probably the best way I can describe it, which is, I think, feeling rather than thinking.
Yeah.
I think that's been kind of an essence of everything I've read, and I've read some books based on kind of yoga, some books based on kind of more evidence-based heart math and lots of things. But I think it's just feeling. It would be the best way that I can describe it. And also giving myself a break, I think, and just giving yourself a break, and that you aren't perhaps, a lot of your programming comes from when you're first in your formative years, in your first 6 or 7 years. And I think sometimes we kind of accept that's who we are. And I think that's perhaps not true. And we accept a lot of this subconscious programming. And we can get in there and we can change it, but we just need to know how to, and the tool set. And yeah, I think there's lots of things you can change, but it's just about having the knowledge and the time to practice it.
And the awareness initially, isn't it? Because
absolutely,
this is how you behave, and maybe that and can see what's happening. Until you're aware that you can't change it. And you had a classic example of this, didn't you? In living in outside of school.
Yeah.
You were saying that you used to get so wound up about where parents park their cars and things. Yeah. And then you had this transformational moment when you were able to use the tools you'd learned. So would you like to explain that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those cases where, I try and cross the road every morning opposite the school, and parents park their cars willy-nilly. And it's just absolute chaos, and it stressed me out no end. And I think it probably stressed me out even more than I actually thought at the time. But I'd done everything. I'd wrote to the council, I'd contacted the headmaster, I did everything I can, and I was getting so het up about it. And I just kind of, I thought, well, I've done everything I can. I can't change anymore. You know, I'm just making myself unwell by thinking about it. I just need to let it go. I just need to accept that I've done what I can, and that's enough. And yeah.
It's a situation really, isn't it, where you recognise that at that point, having gone through all this, that actually if you can't change a situation or somebody, it's about changing the way you respond to it and look at it.
Absolutely. And a lot of the books that you recommended to me, Georgie, have been about be the change. You know, don't expect everything else to change around you. You need to be the change. And that's the best way to manage it, I would say.
So how, on this particular day, I remember you emailed me afterwards to tell me what you'd done, and you were just so shocked by how you'd handled it. So what did you do? Yeah,
this is the one with the badly parking parent, isn't it?
Yeah.
And basically, I nearly knocked me and my son over as we were crossing the road, and I was normal. Chris would have been really upset by that and would have been shouty and the rest of it, but I didn't. I stopped and I calmly took my child into school and took my child to school. And then when I finished that and I saw that he'd taken it, I said, "When you've taken your son into school, can I have a word, please?" And I marched him over to the headmaster and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Hutchins, can you sort out this gentleman here and please inform me of the parking policy at the school?" I said, "He's nearly knocked over me and my son this morning." And I left him at the head and I walked away. And, you know, I felt really chuffed myself actually when I came back, because normally I would have just gone off my head and I would have shouted and it wouldn't have got me anywhere, and it probably made me have a migraine and feel unwell. But this particular day I just accepted, well, you know, I can't change his behaviour. Maybe if I can maybe the head can. Maybe he can.
Maybe. But the next step was that you still recognised, because you're now more aware of how you're feeling, that it had still triggered or you'd had that button pressing moment. And so then you knew not to just ignore it, but you then dealt with it. So how did you then deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I did some journaling, and you know, I've started to write down a lot of these stressful situations, because what I would end up doing is I'd just play them over my head over and over again, these little loops of these little situations. What could I have done different? What could I have done different? I should have said this. He should have said that. Da, 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 da. And it plays over all these negative loops, and it just isn't very good for you. It isn't very healthy, and you know, you end up getting caught in the past, and that's just not great. You need to, you know, be present, be in the space that we're in now.
And I think one of the other things, if I remember rightly, was that you went to play tennis as well. So you were physically expressing some of that built up energy.
Yeah. Well, I played tennis a lot, so it was a good excuse to have a game. So.
So that journaling and playing tennis was a good way to just express how you felt and then put it into perspective.
I think even as much as just recognising that it's really upset you.
Yeah.
I think that's the start, is just not coming back and replaying these loops over, but sometimes you can just do that on completely automatic mode. And actually just getting back and think, actually, that really upset me. My heart is racing. I feel really upset. You know, I think that sometimes we don't actually just sit back and just think, well, that's how I felt. And even just verbalizing that, you know, can be the start.
Absolutely. And there's been evidence to show that if we know to name how we speak, then that really can help and help with our being. And I think, was it one of those emails that you know, Chris was forever sending me odd emails with an image of the blood pressure thing, weren't you? I've got your blood pressure machine set. And initially you realised that you were focusing too much on it, so you went a few weeks without actually taking
I went cold turkey, I think the phrase.
And then every now and again you'd send me the photo of what your blood pressure was showing. And I think one of these was after that school event. Just you're quite amazed that it was so low.
Yeah, I mean I print them off and take a little bit. For me, I take little photos of them and then I print them off and I've got a little board that I put them on, just to evidence to myself. You can control it, you can sort it out. I've actually got one from yesterday, Georgie. Do you want to see it?
Right,
yesterday.
Fantastic. And where are you medication-wise now? Because I know you started coming off that.
Well, the reason I'm taking one every day at the minute, I'm taking my pressure every day, is because I'm now seeing a tertiary doctor. Because when I went on all the medication, my GP was a bit worried, and they sent me over to tertiary centre in Barts in London. The problem is it takes you 16 weeks to get an appointment there, so it's been so long. But I went down there, and the consultant's been great and very supportive, but she wants me to take one every day, not a PIP photograph, but my blood pressure every day, because we're looking to wean down my medication further. So we're looking to take me down now to 5 milligrams of Rampril, which will be, you know, essentially that's my starting dose. That's the dose that I started when I first came onto medication.
Yeah. But basically from 200 over 100 on milligrams to now 121 over 84.
Well, the one this morning was even, should I say about an hour ago, was even better than this one. I've got it here. I can't remember what it was now. I'm getting less het up about what it is. 115 over 76. There you go. That's better than yesterday.
It is. Don't go down. Don't keep going down. It's not a competition, Chris.
Well, I mean, that's a very good point, though, Georgie. You know, I've always seen everything as a competition, and I think that's probably led up to this kind of boiling pot of kind of stress that has kind of taken over with my migraines and my hypertension. So, yeah, I think that's probably it's probably good that I'm not trying to compete with aloneness as well as happiness.
Right. And another area where again it's about being allowing and recognizing if we can't change something or someone and we change ourselves. And you had a really good experience of this and working on yourself and actually completely changing a relationship or a broken relationship you had. Yeah. Do you want to tell everybody a bit about that?
I don't know how much of the background you want to know. I mean,
a little.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, my brother and I, there was a very emotional time when my grandmother sadly passed away 2 years ago. And basically there was a whole hoo-ha about whether or not she was ill enough for us to call my other brother up from the other part of the country or not, or whether or not. And I made the call and I said, well, I think she's ill, you know. And then my brother had unleashed into this whole attack on me about I don't know anything, and it was really quite abusive and really quite insulting to me, swearing in front of me, in front of my kids and things. And you know, and kind of since then, I'd been speaking to him, but I'd been making no effort to contact him. And, you know, to say that we were kind of not speaking is probably not fair because I was speaking to him, but he just didn't make any contact with me. And it was obvious to our family and my parents, who actually it was really getting to, you know, the relationship had broken down. And you know, and I looked at it thinking, well, you know, he's just behaved really awfully to me. Why on earth should I accept it? And why should I let him behave that way with me and get away with it and all the rest of it? And actually I looked at it and I thought, well, read some of the books that obviously you'd recommended, Georgie, and we discussed about it. And I kind of went there with the planning to kind of hopefully resurrect the relationship when I seen him next. And I did a lot of reading about forgiving. I can't remember the name of the book now, but
by Dr.
Forgive for Good. That's for Good. That's the one. And I read that book, and I found that really useful. And the idea that they're not getting away with it, and that essentially you're the one that's made yourself upset because only you control your emotions, and it's just about how you deal with him. And my brother is my brother, and he's a perfect example of my brother. So I just need to accept him as he is, and I did. And I think he was more surprised than anybody. Well, actually, my wife was quite surprised.
So initially, you did this through journaling, didn't you?
Yeah.
Contact letters and being able to start looking at it from his point of view, etc.
Absolutely. Try to look through his point of view, how the way he would see it, which is difficult, isn't it? When you believe so strongly that somebody's behaved poorly, it's very difficult to see their side of things. You know, and looking back at it, you know, I look back now and I think, well, he was just obviously very emotional, very upset, but didn't have the capability to express it.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. I'm happy that I preserved the relationship and that.
Absolutely. I bet he is as well now.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're talking now. I got a phone call from him a few weeks ago, so you know, it's good. It's good.
The initial contact, you said you sent him a text, didn't you? And he responded to that before Christmas. Because
Yeah.
you knew you were going to then see him over Christmas, didn't you?
Well, this is it. I thought I'll send him a text about, you know, the kids' Christmas cards or whatever it was. I thought I'll just, you know, it's a gentle way of opening the door for him. I thought it's not going to be something he has to respond to straight away, and he can have a think about it and all the rest of it. And then, obviously, then when I see him in person, I mean, to be fair, I was fairly nervous about the whole thing, but I managed really well. I was really impressed with how composed I was, how I controlled my breathing, how I just controlled. I just took a breath and paused before speaking and just tried to relax as much as I could, even though it was stressful. The interesting thing was, though, that driving back home from my family in Yorkshire, we literally stopped at, I think it was a Burger King or something, to get a snack for the kids because they were starving. And I literally stepped into the Burger King out the car, straight away, migraine on. So it was like, well, there's your cause and effect for you, Chris. So this is just reinforcing, you know, everything we said before about the nature of it. And
this is something you said that apparently used to happen sort of halfway home. So a conditioned response.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a cynic would perhaps say, oh, well, you know, it's the driving, it's a lot of work and you're tired and therefore that's brought on your migraine. I don't think that's fair to say. I do a lot of driving during my job and actually, you know, it's only coming home from my parents that I get the migraines.
Yeah. But you dealt with it this time, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what did you do?
What, in terms of my migraine?
Yes.
I let my wife drive for a change.
But what you said to me was that actually you recognised it straight away.
Yeah.
And you also said that you usually knew whether it was going to be a really severe one or a not severe one, and it was starting to look like it was going to be a severe one.
Yeah.
So you managed to avoid it. So what did you actually action in?
I just reflected on the whole events that had gone on, and I just tried to kind of I mean, it's just that whole being present, trying to take some deep breaths and just kind of reflect on the whole thing. And in the end, I ended up kind of feeling really positive about the whole situation. And actually in that kind of turn, changed it all. And it kind of died down my migraine. And I did actually let my wife drive, believe it or not. But it did die down a bit.
Yeah. And certainly from my memory, you were saying that when you say reflect, I just wanted to make this clear that it's not overthinking it. This is actually just recognising what was going on, rationalising it. But you also say that you listened in to your inner self, really.
Absolutely. I think to begin with, I was doing too much there. Oh, where's it come from, this migraine? What's caused it? And actually, I think that's probably counterproductive in as much as I think just kind of relaxing about it and saying, well, obviously there has been something stressful. Mm-hmm. You know, perhaps we don't even need to know what that stressful thing was, but just kind of recognizing that something had happened rather than kind of searching around, thinking, trying to find, you know, again, this kind of reflects the side of my nature where I just need to find that cause or the problem or need to get the lowest score or, you know, I think it's,
So from what you said at the time in your email, you were saying that you were actually then allowed yourself to feel how you were feeling, listening almost to your inner child, and you were reassuring him that, I know that you're feeling unsafe and that things have been pretty scary, but you know what, this is okay, we're safe, just a conditioned response, we're going to be all right. So you were soothing yourself as well as rationalising it and acknowledging how you felt.
Yeah, I think, it's okay to feel this way. I think it was just giving myself the go-ahead to feel the way that I was feeling and to say, well, that is the response. It has been a really stressful couple of days. Yeah, it's okay to feel a bit stressed out about it. And, you know, I think that giving yourself permission.
Yes, absolutely. So this has been quite an interesting journey for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'll say.
So they've explored all sorts of different areas. So how is your life different now from what it was before? Was that too big a question?
Well, you probably should be asking my wife. She's the one that probably...
Useful, yes.
Well,
what would she say?
She'd say that I'm a different person. She'd say that I'm so much more calmer, so much more patient, especially with the kids and her. You know, I'm just, I just feel a lot less angry and just a lot less pressure on myself to achieve and to do well, and you know.
I remember the other thing also that you mentioned, that you looked at your lifestyle, didn't you? And looked at the fact that at the beginning you were rushing around trying to do so much, and you began to look at what could you let go of, all the responsibilities, and how could you sort of just calm your life down a little bit so you weren't at the beck and call of everybody else and your phone and all the commitments.
Yeah, I've started putting my phone down now. Like, I get to a certain point in the night, I just think, I've enough of that, I put it away. I'll get the Kindle out, but that's only to read my books. It's not to, it's not to surf the internet or to look at kind of planning my day for my work and the rest of it. And I've actually stepped down from a job that I was doing as well. So you know, I've kind of just tried to think, well, I'm having high blood pressure and I've got a young family. I kind of want to be around. So you know, it's as much as I want to do the other stuff, it's actually not that important. I need to put priorities in place.
Absolutely. So it's completely change things around, and you can now see how this isn't just about a program to resolve symptoms.
Yeah.
A lifestyle change, and beginning to see that you can. It's not even like taking half an hour a day to do this, that, or the other, but actually to integrate things within your day to develop your own resilience and feeling of well-being, so you can cope better with things in your life.
I think like it's not concentrating on feeling better, but concentrating getting better at feeling. I think that's probably.
Oh, that's a good one. Can I make that? That's really good, Chris. Is there anything else that you think that you'd like to say that you feel might help other people?
Well, I mean, I can only kind of explain my journey, really. For me, it worked really well having the kind of one-to-one support, as well as the books and signposting for different things. I quite like reading around the topic, and I do like to know, what I'm kind of doing and background and the rest of it. So for me, having yourself, Georgie, to kind of point me in the direction of all the different literature and things has been really instrumental. I think without that, I don't think it all would have digested. I think having kind of the links through has been, really crucial.
Yeah, and having that support and guidance to answer questions as you're going through.
Yeah, and even just having somebody to I'd be reflecting on things, but just having the kind of somebody to say, this is how I've been feeling, and and the rest of it. Because you can do that with family, but actually, family aren't specialists within rehabilitation, are they? So it's,
no,
it's quite useful, but you second guess yourself sometimes, and it's quite useful to just have that kind of that grounding spot to get back to, where you kind of you can move away and you can read something else, but then you've always got that, okay, back to the grounding spot now, and and you can kind of put all your techniques in a box and start to build them, which is really useful.
Yeah, and begin to, especially when there is a challenge, when you're facing a challenge as you're going through this, it can be helpful to just sort of reach out, can't it? Otherwise it's so easy to go back into the old patterns of behaviour and fearful thoughts, for example.
Yeah. It's actually quite nice, because when I think it's about seeing those stressful situations now, I try to see them more as challenges. I don't see them more as kind of more positive things.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I don't react straight away to stuff. I try and just wait a minute, think about how I feel about it, sit back a little bit, and kind of approach it in a different way. And I think just by doing that changes the way that I am with a situation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I know this is going to be really helpful for people.
Good. I hope so.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.